What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Big Thing. This is deja vu for at least me and my guest today, because yesterday we did a whole Dune spoiler review, and we had myself and Mark Reilly and Greg Alba from The Real Rejects. And if you want to see it, that's absolutely possible. If you want to hear it, that's not possible. It just isn't. Something happened with the system. I mean, it was a great episode. I mean, it really was. About an hour and 15 minutes. I wasted everybody's time, so that's awesome. And now we're going to do it all over again. But unfortunately, I can't have Greg Alba with me today. I got Mark Reilly, which is great because Mark Reilly is the Dune expert. So,
sure. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, he is. He is here. You hear him in the background there. You're going to see him in a second. But we're doing a full Dune spoiler review. It is the big thing. And let's get to it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm excited to talk to Reilly about it. And yeah, Greg Alba hates me, but that's all right. It's not all right. I'm not happy with that. I will figure it out. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Dune spoiler review on The Big Thing. Excited to do it once again. Yesterday was a test run of this character. The odious of Reilly's, Mark Reilly. Mark, I tested the sound. It does indeed work.
It works? We're here?
No, I know what I did yesterday. It was so stupid.
My God, it works. I'm so excited to be here again.
Yeah, and do it all over again.
Do it all over. Dune it all over again.
Any mistakes that we made,
yeah,
people won't know about it because we'll make them again today. But still, yeah, I did. Diesel Time, the guy did the animation for us. I did this great animation of both Steffens of Flirt and Flounce, and I was going to play it on the show yesterday.
Yeah.
So I started putting it into the system, and I had to adjust settings and do all that. And so I adjusted some setting and didn't test it before we went. Did not get the audio, ladies and gentlemen.
You know, I mean, it happens. I can't tell you how many times I've been on Twitch or something, and people are like, you doing? You know, and it's like press this button.
But that's okay to handle because you're by yourself.
Yeah,
and you didn't do it. Greg Alba drove out like 2 hours to get here yesterday.
Yeah, Alba's pissed. He's not. He's very.
No,
cool
he's a
about
great guy. But like he and I have been trying. He's been helping me out so much with everything, and I said it on the show that you can't hear that we were like buddies beforehand, and we're pretty good friends now, and he's been helping me out with all this stuff, and we've been trying so hard. He's like, you know what, I'm going to get out to come do the show. So finally we book it weeks in advance. It comes out and we lose the sound. So sucks. Tis what it is. But we're going to get into Dune because we both love this movie, man.
Oh yeah,
both loved it. Talked about that at depth. But this is a thing that I think we talked about, where the book lovers, normally what happens with books, even if it's Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, like you always have people who read the book that go, I don't know if I really like this as much as the book. Not seeing a lot of that for this movie.
No.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, I think this is a very good, faithful adaptation.
Yeah.
This is one of the closest I've seen of a book to movie where you get the tone, you get all the good stuff in there, and it really just had that nice little. It hit the sweet spot for me, and I think a lot of the Dune heads out there that love this book are seeing that. Now, all adaptations are not going to get everything right. I think. I mean, but I said it yesterday. I'll say I keep saying this. This reminded me of Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Like where I watched in 2001. I sat down for the very first Lord of the Rings movie. So excited because I was a huge fan of the books. I'd read all the books again before going into the movie, and I sat down and went, my God, they did it. They did it, and this becomes an epic, and it's become iconic, and everybody talks about it. It's part of the zeitgeist now, Lord of the Rings. That's what Dune did. That's what Denis Villeneuve did for me, at least, and my love of the book. He got it.
Yeah, I don't think it's just you. I think it's a lot of people for sure, because the way that he sets this up, and I mentioned it where I think that it's people just taking shots and being a bit silly by just saying, well, this is Star Wars for adults. Well, Star Wars is for adults and kids, but I understand kind of what the person was going for. This is certainly the science. This is more geared towards adults, right?
Sure.
I think they're just saying that. Like this is science fiction for adults. Just saying that in general, because I think that sci-fi, fantasy, and this is what Star Wars is. There are things that you can love as children. There is things that you can love as adults. But for this is definitely a more. You've got to be fully invested inside of. There's some stuff that will go over children's heads in this. You got to be really locked into it. I watched it with subtitles. I'm glad that I did. I didn't see it in IMAX. I didn't see it in the theater like everybody wanted me to. I apologize, but I was pretty content with the way that I did watch it. I had it on subtitles. I had it on my big screen TV. I had great sound. So I think that's all important because the sound design, the way that this thing is shot, it's beautiful all the way around, and it really sets up the mythology very well.
Oh, yeah.
And Timothée Chalamet is fantastic in this movie.
Yeah, we got into his character a lot in our conversation yesterday, but to play it back as best as possible here, he's one of my favorite parts of the movie, and I think that,
he takes us through it.
He is the, the prophesized one.
Yeah.
And he's also has his foot in two different worlds.
Yeah.
And that's important to look at and see in his performance because he is carrying a weight on his shoulders.
Right.
Not only is he the son of Duke Leto and, the heir apparent to House Atreides, but he is also Lady Jessica's son and part of the Bene Gesserit kind of religion. Powers. And so all of that, it's like going through his face every time you see him on camera. And then whenever he interacts with like what he has to do with, Brolin's character, Gurney Halleck, or Duncan Idaho, Momoa's character, he changes. And like his performance is so nuanced.
It is.
And it's so incredibly well thought out and so great to see. It is so great to see.
He's such a talented actor, and this you also see throughout this thing that Dune, where George Lucas got so much inspiration for, right? Because
absolutely.
And for a lot of people, even The Matrix, like he's Neo, he's Luke Skywalker. There's so much of what he does, and the voice is the Force, right? Connecting what the was the witches? I don't know.
Okay, they're kind of they're witches, sure.
Yeah.
But they're as much as I can remember, they are a religious sect.
Yeah.
There's going to be a series about them.
Okay, right. But that's what they said that the series is going to be. We just don't know what time period that's going to be.
Yeah, I can't remember, and I think it takes place within the realm of the second book. I want to say Dune Messiah.
Yeah.
But I don't, if that's the second book, I can't remember. I didn't read the books after Dune.
Yeah.
I started getting into the second book. I can't really remember, but I love Dune. I just don't know where it's going to land. But I think it's going to be played out whenever that series comes. I think it probably will take place after Dune Part 2.
Okay. Well, they set the mythology very well in this because even Lady Jessica, the great Rebecca Ferguson, who's also fantastic in this movie all the way around, because you don't know, if you haven't read the book, really what her motivations are and what her purpose is going to be. We know that this kid is the son of the Duke, not the son of the Duke.
Yeah.
So Oscar Isaac, excuse me. So who will definitely get into, because he's also phenomenal.
Oh, he's so great.
Phenomenal in this film. But the way that she has this scene with him when she tells him, use the voice, do this, and it's like this training. You're curious right away from this scene, but the question is like, what does she want to do with this kid? Is she just kind of like, okay, she's just part of the empire or part of this kingdom, and is going to train this kid to do his duties and then move on? But that's not what it is. We see the doctor. The doctor's like, don't trust the witches. Mm-hmm. And then this scene that happens where Lady Jessica is sitting outside, and the acting of what Rebecca Ferguson does here should be noted, because she's standing out there and she loves her son more than anything, but she also believes in the cause, and she believes in that the fact that he is the chosen one, and in order to prove that to herself, she's got to potentially sacrifice her son to prove it with the gobjabber.
The gobjabber, yeah.
So,
crossing of the threshold, a hero's journey. This is what Paul has to do.
This is it. This moment here is essentially when Luke is offered to become a Jedi, right?
Yeah.
And going on off and leaving Tatooine, because he's got to sit there. He has this moment. He puts his hand in the box. She feels that she wants to rush in there. She knows she cannot. Mm-hmm. And then this sigh of relief when she realizes that he did it. And even the gobjabber is like, all right, he might be the one. He could be.
Well, he's in the mythology, which is very, very dense. We'll get into that, and I think that's why there's some divisiveness on online and whatnot. But this kind of rite of passage he is the one that has been able to withstand the most pain.
Right.
And the Bene Gesserit, they don't have men; they have females.
Right. She says to Lady Jessica, like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. Her love for the Duke she gave him Paul.
Right.
Basically is kind of the way you think about it. And we'll get into, and then Paul is able to figure out that, well, no, you will get a daughter because she is pregnant in this movie, and we'll see. Spoilers, everybody. This is what it is. But that's an interesting relationship to see with Lady Jessica. The love she has for Paul, kind of going against the ways of the Bene Gesserit and giving that to Duke is a fascinating thing to see. And then going back to Chalamet, it's all there in his performance.
It also shows how powerful they are, though, too, because even so, what's the Drakens? What's the race of Dave Bautista and
the Harkonnens?
Harkonnens. Yeah. So the Harkonnens, like they're such scumbags. The way that they kind of build, move around things, because even the Gobjabber's like, hey, don't touch. Do what you got to do with everybody else, but don't touch the kid and don't touch Lady Jessica, and we're good. And then even the Baron's like, yeah, we're gonna let them die, and he's like, and David Dalsmanchian, who's also great in this movie,
he's so good.
He's like, you just gave your word to her, you can't kill them. He's like, well, we're not gonna kill them. I'm not gonna lay a hand on them, but we'll leave them to die.
They'll just go out into the desert,
and then they die. We didn't do it.
Right.
So that's the kind of way around it. But even he knows he can't outright not lie to them, because that's how powerful they are. And here's this is where, like, the Game of Thrones aspect comes.
Yes, absolutely.
It's very Game of Thrones, and what we're saying as far as we can get into Jason Isaacs, Oscar Isaacs, and talking about how he is. I believe that his death is the most Shakespearean thing out of the whole thing.
Absolutely.
The whole thing plays very Shakespearean.
It's Shakespeare. It's Game of Thrones. You say it's a giant chessboard.
It is
in space, and you watch the Emperor, who we haven't yet to see in the movies yet, but we hear through the Baron, which is Skarsgård.
Yes, who's also phenomenal.
He's so phenomenal.
Great makeup too.
Oh my God, this is visually a stunning movie. Just across the board.
He's like Gluttony in Seven.
Yep, he absolutely is. But this is a chess game, and even the Duke knows that, and it's the cause, and it's when you are called by the Emperor to take on Arrakis,
right? And
now run the spice, because he who controls the spice controls the universe. That's kind of Dune in a nutshell, I feel. They know they're going into danger.
Yeah. What a scam the whole thing is.
It is, but that's why they're like, but that's our duty,
right?
And we're going to be wary. We're gonna do it. We're gonna be okay, because we're Atreides and we can do this,
right?
And that's what I love so much about Oscar Isaac's character, is because he is so proud.
Yep.
He is such a proud man.
Yep.
And he's so smart, and he's so willing to also lead. And when we meet Stilgar, who is Javier Bardem's character,
also so good.
The Fremen are, the native indigenous people of that planet.
So they remind me of the wildlings in Game of Thrones.
Right. Yeah. You can kind of see that.
Yeah.
There's so many moving pieces in this thing that is set up in this movie that is done so well. You people, if you like this movie, get ready for Dune 2.
Which is greenlit.
It's been finally greenlit.
They greenlit it yesterday.
After one weekend in theaters, that is phenomenal to see, and thank God.
And it's funny, because we weren't sure when the announcement was made. We said, well, wonder if they're going to do a streaming, at the same day streaming, like they did for this one. No, they're not. That was part of the negotiation this time around. Denis, he said it's going to be exclusive in theaters, which I understand. And by the time this movie comes out, which is, you said 2023?
It's been dated for October 2023.
I mean, look, as I thought about it more, when you look at how he's been championing part 2, like he wanted everything in his power was to do part 2. he's got everything laid out already. He's got the story laid out. He's got everything ready to go. He like the post-production, or excuse me, pre-production is not gonna be like, all right, well, what do we do now? Oh, we got to start making. He's probably had it all ready to go. So 2 years, as crazy as it seems, like putting a movie 2 years in is tough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Star Wars did it. But they at least executed the plan, right?
Right.
But this is different. I think I would have liked them to have shot it the same time,
back to back, like Lord of the Rings did.
Yeah. But I understand why that was a bigger risk for the studio, because this movie, had it not done that well, then because you can justify saying, well, look how well it did on both HBO Max and how it did worldwide. Mm-hmm. Yeah, people and the buzz.
Yeah, the buzz is great.
You can understand why it got a sequel.
Absolutely. But going into this, there was so much conversation that, Dune is unadaptable, right? We cannot adapt this. There are books out there that they said this about it at one point. They said it about Lord of the Rings at one point. It's like because the mythology is so incredibly dense and complex.
Right.
Will audiences respond to that? Will they walk in wanting a popcorn movie? Something they can just go in, have fun.
And I think some people did want that, and I think that's why some people didn't respond to it and said, this is boring. Right. I didn't like it. This is dull. It took too long to get going. I think those are the people that just...
It's not for them, maybe.
It's not for them. They wanted exactly that. They wanted the popcorn movie. They wanted some big, fun, overall sci-fi. Probably what they're going to get in part 2.
You're going to get more of it in part 2.
More of it. It's still going to be pretty detailed and layered, but it's everything leading up to that, the same way that Return of the King was the big action piece at the end of out of Lord of the Rings, where there's a lot of detail in the other two. But going back to your other point, as far as how it's not adaptable, that's why a lot of things are now being turned into television shows, right? Because it's a lot easier to adapt all that material. I think like books. Look at like Percy Jackson, right? Right. Percy Jackson. Those 2 movies were just a bust. Yeah. They just weren't good. Yeah. They're turning them into an end to the author's admission as well. They're turning it into a series on Disney Plus, which with all the mythology that book has, they'd be like, so that's why I think this movie is such an accomplishment, because you know me, I scream from the heavens that everything should be streaming television shows now. But I am very impressed in the way that Denis Villeneuve was able to adapt this in a 2-hour and 30-minute format, which isn't really that long when you look at how much material is in here. Yeah. And what he was able to do.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Nolan is praising this thing left and right. Yeah. And there is something about this movie. And
they're like today's Spielberg and Coppola.
They are. Yeah. They really are. And they are like really trying to what's the word I'm looking for? Like make sure that the theatrical experience continues to live on in this time of streaming. And I'm with you. Like I was very much like let's talk about Disney Plus. When Lucasfilm was like, here are all these streaming series of Star Wars, and we're only getting 2 movies in the next 5 years. I'm a little upset about that. I was bummed. Right. But then I watched The Mandalorian take shape and what happened and what they did and the characters and the character arcs and the story that was easily digestible at the very beginning, then got very interesting as it went along. I get it. Like adapting these things, you get more time, you get more, And
that was an original.
That was an original, correct. So if you consider, Lord of the Rings, that we're getting a series now, that's going to be interesting to see. But Dune, there is something about, don't we want this with our movies? Don't we want a complexity where we can go back and also see the art and the craft of being able to adapt a book in a way that
on the
big screen where you get that theatrical experience.
You're not wrong. Where you were the opposite, I think, where you had to be convinced where, TV is a good way to adapt a lot of these big screen stuff. I was starting to become the opposite, right? Where I'm like, a lot of these details, you don't necessarily need them on the big screen. But after seeing Dune, and even though I saw it on my big screen TV, I'm like, oh man, IMAX. Like I saw Eternals, which Greg Alba made the point yesterday. Eternals could have been a series on Disney Plus,
Right,
and probably
right.
a good one at that. And I didn't disagree with them. I think that's true. But it was so gorgeous to look at on the big screen in IMAX, right? So I can only imagine what Dune looks like on IMAX.
I want to see it on IMAX.
Yeah.
I went opening night to the theater. I remember talking to you. You're like,
Yeah.
you got to go see it. Like, you know, you can watch it.
I
at
thought
home.
you watched it at home.
I did watch it at home.
Oh, you did?
But I decided to. It was kind of a last minute thing.
So you saw it twice.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I went opening night Friday to the theater right down the
and
street.
you watched it again.
And then I watched it
that's
again
awesome.
at home. And let me tell you, both times
Yeah.
are it's hard to qualify because yes, it's better in the theater, you know, just because of what
Sure.
it looks like.
Sure.
But I enjoyed the hell out of it at my house.
Right. Yeah, me
because I
too.
have a great big
Right,
screen that we
right.
got.
Good sound.
Good sound. We have the dimmer lights that we
Yeah.
put down. We
Right.
have all these things available to us.
Right.
And
I wouldn't be able to watch it on like a little TV or anything. So I understand. I think when
No,
people
God, no.
when people think about that right away and they go, "You're watching it on like the small screen," and it's like I get that. I get that. It's supposed to be big. It's like it's supposed to be like you're supposed to see the desert. Like you could look around and see like the actual desert on all corners. And when the sandworm shows up in that scene, when they're there to save the soldiers, like how big and massive that must look on the IMAX.
Do you know what I did in that theater?
Did you jump?
During that part? No, it was kind of, it was almost like this reaction that I didn't know I made because Julie went, shh.
Yeah, yeah.
Like this, I went, oh my God.
Did you watch it? I'm sorry. Did you watch it first in the theater?
Yeah, first
You
in the
did.
theater.
Got it,
Yeah,
got it,
yeah.
got it.
Because when we were talking about it, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get around to
Right,
it. I don't know if
right.
I can.
Yeah,
yada,
yeah,
yada,
yeah.
yada. You were like, you got to see it. It's at home. Why don't you watch it at home? And it was literally like, you know, it's right down the street. So like literally 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's just do it. And it was a very impulse, last minute.
Yeah.
Let's
Did
go
Julie
and watch
like it?
She loved it.
Did she?
Yeah,
Okay.
she really, really loved it, and she wants to watch it again.
Okay.
So, for a third time for her, that's something to be said.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
It just sets it up so well. And going back to Oscar Isaac, what I liked so much, and we mentioned it, was that these little subtle moments that he's got throughout the entire movie, and it's these subtle moments that make characters, right, and to show everything that you described him as. And like a few of these moments, one of them being after this big moment where the spice is what enhances Paul's powers,
Yeah.
if you will, right?
Mhm.
And it goes back to where this book was written in the 60s. It's like the age of the psychedelics or the
Bunch of hippies.
yeah, you get
Expand your mind.
yeah, the acid and all this stuff, the Timothy Leary stuff and all that.
Right.
It's like, and the power of opening up the doors of perception and
Correct.
and that's what ultimately is happening with Paul and how he's able to open up and see more stuff and and the relationship he has with Josh Brolin, who also was so happy that they didn't turn him into like the guy who betrays the king. That's the way that they were setting that up. At least in most movies, you would go, okay, well, he's training the kid and he's going to turn on.
Sure.
He doesn't, or at least he doesn't in this one. And then there's this moment where he says when he's getting trained by Josh Brolin, and Brolin says to Brolin, "I can hear your footsteps, old man." And then the call back to that as he's in this trance, and he goes like, "I can hear your footsteps, old man." And he grabs him, they run, the sandworm almost gets him. But it's this moment that Oscar Isaac has with him because Paul has taken so long, and he goes, basically, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You can't do that, blah, 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 blah." And Paul says to him, "I'm sorry, sir, it won't happen again." And he goes, "Get out of here." And then he goes back to business.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, "Okay, I told the kid what's going on. He got it. I got to give him his lesson. He sees that he screwed up. He's a kid. Moving on."
Right.
And then there's the head of security that they love, and they see him, and he's the older black gentleman who is a great character actor. Just seems like a very warm character in every movie that he's in. But
he's the mentat in this. I
is that what he is? And
yeah.
so Paul catches the dart and almost kills him, and the security guard feels awful about it. And he says, the head of security, I should say, and he says to the Duke, he's just like, "I'm sorry, I'm handing him my resignation," and he's like, "What are you talking about?"
Right.
He's like, "I don't care about your resignation. I don't care about your feelings right now." He's like, "Do your job, get back out there." And he's just like, "You're right," and he does, and it's just like, and then with Stilgard, is that with Stilgard?
Yeah, with Javier. Yep. Mhm.
So even that, when he comes in and you know, there's Josh Brolin is quick on the gun, like so. He spits, and Momoa's like, no, it's their culture.
It's such a great, yeah.
It's like
giving
that-
the moisture.
yeah.
It's an offering.
Right, and then so Oscar's like, calm down, everybody. When they go to put the suit on him, and it's like, calm down, everybody.
Yeah.
And he's got this level head thing about him. So like when you finally get the betrayal by the doctor, it's this tragic thing where you're like,
Shakespeare, man.
yeah, it's Shakespeare. He's like, you just ain't gonna, he ain't gonna make it through.
Right.
And when he finally does that thing, and you think he takes the Baron out with the gas at the end, and he takes everybody else but the Baron out. See how strong. Like, how does that fucker survive?
Well, he has that weird ability to be able to float. So he floated enough away because we see him basically clinging to the ceiling, got away from the I guess the blast zone, if you want to call it that, which was such a fantastic moment. And to see the realization, Oscar Isaac is probably my second favorite. Chalamet really, truly is my favorite of this. And
well, you always gravitate towards those Luke and.
I'm the the hero's journey guy. I love to see it, and if it's done well, there we go. But Oscar Isaac, you were talking about some of his quiet moments, that his meeting with the Fremen and Stilgar, and being open to, we have to make peace with this. Because if we do, it's going to make everything easier. It really is.
Yeah.
And he knows that. He's a good leader, but he knows that he's screwed.
Yeah.
He knows that it's his time and that he's going to go out, and he's going to try to go out and taking everybody with him.
Right.
It's such an important moment for his character.
Yeah.
And he just plays it so beautifully.
Well, even the doctor who has had the plan for the whole way through, he's just like, when you get close enough, they're gonna kill you. But like, I got to do this. I got to try to save my wife, which is understandable. The heart wants what it wants. You're trying to save your wife and your loved one, but you should also know that she's probably gone. Because he ends his death is pretty gruesome. They just chop his head off, but even he's not a bad dude. He's just
he's put in a bad position. And I hope it lands with people in the movie, because the book obviously goes deeper, and you get a little bit more of the politics. You get a little bit more of the what am I trying to? It's complex in a lot of ways, but this played really well because he's been put into a position where it's like, it's either my wife or you. And I'm making that decision.
So what's crazy about this too? Even though you look at, I'll tell you there is a reason why I bring a reference to it. Like, so the Uncharted trailer came out, right?
Right.
And I played all 4 games.
Yeah, me too.
And the trailer itself, to me, I don't think that Mark Wahlberg fits Sully at all. I don't mind him as young Nathan Drake. I know a lot of people see him as Spider-Man. They have a problem with it. But the reason I bring it up is that what I will say that the grievance that everybody had that I share is that I don't understand when it comes to video game movies why they always change the lore, and they always either change it or they mix it up, or they make it a mixture of all 4 games into one instead of just taking one of them and adapting them. And this seems to stay true to it's when you start to mess with everything that worked. I understand when you got to shorten things up and kind of cliff noted a little bit. I understand that because the book, if you made the full book, it would have been a 15-hour movie.
Right, exactly.
So you have to, but staying true, like you said, when you're talking about the doctor, you can't add all that stuff in there, but you get the basics of it. They don't switch it around and change it up. Like, actually, you know what? He doesn't betray him because of this. He betrays him because he really wants to be the Duke. Like that kind of stuff.
That's why it's a craft. The movie making.
Yeah,
it is an art form. It is something that I am drawn to, the theatrical experience. And so when you have a filmmaker like Denis Villeneuve, who's getting praised by Christopher Nolan,
he should be. This is a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece. And it is to adapt it the way he did, to be able to take the cliff notes, make it accessible to an audience, make it flow with the story, to get all that feeling from it, is a true accomplishment.
It really is, because the thing is, I'm bringing up the David Lynch version, right? That version of the book, I think, started to prove to people wrong, even though it was wrong, but the people who said it can't be adapted, that's when they can go, see, look at the great David Lynch. He can't do it because it was too weird and it wasn't accessible for everybody.
And David Lynch wanted to make a crazy movie. And that's what Lynch does.
It was just nuts. And it's like, I remember seeing it because it was right around the time of Star Wars when it was coming out.
Lynch was offered Return of the Jedi, and he went, no, I'm going to go make Dune
instead. And he did. And it's like, because that came out in 84.
Yeah, 84 around
So
there.
it's right after Return of the Jedi. So people are hungry for sci-fi, you know. So
That's why I went and saw it.
that's why everybody went and saw it, but you're just like,
Yeah.
it went right over people's heads because it was too strange. And, you know, and honestly, I think that movie needed to be made today because the technology back then doesn't do it the kind of justice that what
Correct.
Denis Villeneuve was able to do.
Yeah.
And you know, talking about like Zendaya and there was a great story that Greg Alba told on the Lost show, if you will.
Yeah,
on the the Lost Audio. And he talked about how he was in the theater, and while he was there, after about 2 hours, when Zendaya shows up, someone goes, "Finally, that's why I'm here."
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, she is like the whole reason for Paul's journey, from everything that he sees, these visions that he has. She's the lead of these visions, but ultimately, and you talked about this, that how big of a role she has in part 2.
Oh yeah, I made the joke. That guy in the theater is gonna love part 2,
Right?
Because she is a huge integral part of it.
Yeah.
And I would push back on that guy. She is throughout the movie, maybe not in a way that they wanted,
Right.
of course, you know, and
Not the
a lot is,
traditional way.
you know, not the traditional way that she's a main. She is a main character, but what she is that she's the harbinger. She is this vision that is calling to Paul, you know, part of his hero's journey. She is the vision that she is that kind of the impetus behind Paul to, you know, what is going on, making, and, you know, it's a movie about a choice, you know, and Paul makes a choice at the end of this that will then lead to the consequences in part 2.
Yeah.
And she's tied to that. So, you know, there's visions throughout.
And
where we see her a lot, but
Yes.
yeah, I get it. You know, we want more of Zendaya.
And the visions are something that was one of my favorite things throughout it, because it's set up from the get-go with the gobjabber.
Yeah.
And she asks him, "These visions that you have, do they always come true?" And he says, "Not exactly."
Right.
It's so great because there's like the Duncan stuff, right? And we'll get a little bit more into Jason Momoa in just a moment. But like when he's like, "I saw you die," and he's like, "I'm not gonna die."
Right.
He's like, "I need to be there with you." So he's not there with him. He doesn't die. But when he's there with him, he does, and he kind of dies in the way that he saw the vision in that hallway with all the he does. So that particular vision, although maybe not exactly the same way, does happen.
Yeah.
So then the other thing that I thought was great was the guy that Paul ultimately kills to become part of the Fremen. That guy he sees in a vision as his mentor.
Yeah.
He sees that guy as, and in a weird way, he is the guy that ultimately allows him to become. You know, because Paul's such a great fighter, because he sees that guy kill Paul. Paul sees himself die on that guy's hands at one point in the vision too, but it's the opposite of what happens, and maybe it's what he's ultimately seeing. You tell me, because you read the book, but the way that I took that, it was the innocence and the old Paul that was there. That Paul dies because of that fight.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
That's to me what he's seeing. He's not seeing his actual death. He's seeing the death of who he was.
Correct.
The new Paul is born through that fight.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at it this way, I said earlier, it's like he has one foot in two different worlds, almost. You know, he is the son of Duke. He is part of House Atreides, which is a very regal, proud house, right? And you know, taking on the planet of Arrakis is dangerous, but it is part of their duty, and so they're going to do that. So there's Paul living in the shadow of his father,
right? And
literally in the shadow, trying to be, you know, learning from Brolin's character and Duncan and Momoa's character, learning the ways of being a warrior, but then the other foot is in the Bene Gesserit kind of religion. The Lady Jessica, mom, you know, teaching him the voice, teaching him the ways of this religion. When we get to that end part, he makes that choice. He can't
on that path.
He can't go back to House Atreides because of what happened.
It's his new duty.
It's his new duty. Well, it's his new path.
Well, speaking of duty, Mark, Tushy. I don't know if you guys know Tushy, but Tushy is the modern bidet company, and I've talked to you guys about Tushy many times over. I think that with all the technology in Dune, they're not using toilet paper to wipe their butts. They're using Tushy. And Tushy washes away the messiest of poops, leaving you with a better clean than toilet paper. You don't want a messy poop. You ever have an explosion in your pants and it's like, oh, that's horrible. I got to jump in the shower. I got somewhere to go. This is, it's a mess. You gotta be careful with what you're doing with the wipe. You get rid of all that. You don't need to do that anymore. Here's the question to ask yourself if you really need it. You think you have a clean butt enough that you can sit on your couch naked? No. You'd look down and you'd see if you'd made a drop. Well, get a Tushy. It is the modern bidet that attaches directly to your toilet in under 10 minutes. Think about all the weird stuff you'd be able to do with a Tushy behind you. If you get poop on any part of your body, you'd just wipe it right off, right? No, you would not. You'd wash it. You'd wash the poop off your arm if you got poop on your arm. Stop wiping and start washing with Tushy. It's the modern bidet that attaches directly to your toilet. The Tushy bidet features a lot of great things. What they have, it can wash your bum with water for a better clean, way better than toilet paper. It's easy to install, attaches to the toilet in under 10 minutes. There's no electricity or plumbing needed. Using a Tushy bidet reduces your toilet paper use by, Mark, get this, 80%. Saves you money, it's eco-friendly, and it's stylish. And it has a new Tushy brush. It's the only toilet brush with disposable scrubbing pads, so you can use a clean brush every single time. Start washing with the Tushy bidet for a better clean. You go to hellotushy.com/SENLive. You get 10% off plus free shipping. It's only a special offer for our listeners. That's hellotushy.com/SENLive. You get 10% off. After you buy and install your Tushy, show it off. Tag us and at hellotushy on Instagram. They need one of those. Clean the butts.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do. So, speaking of Jason Momoa.
God, he's great in this.
He's really good in
He's
this.
so good in this.
He's got, I think that he brings everybody's very serious in this movie. Understandably, why? We understand why.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great warrior, but he's not super serious. He can crack jokes. Mm-hmm. He's a bit of a hippie. You know, he's understanding. He's a warrior, but he also he even says he fought some of the Fremen,
mm-hmm.
and he's like, I lived with them. They can kick ass, man. He's like, that was the closest I ever came. I love that line. He's the closest I ever came to dying.
Yep. If you consider his character and consider what he needs to do, he went to live with the Fremen. That's why he is the way he is.
Yeah.
That's why he is so approachable. That's why he has a personality that's maybe a little bit different than the, I am smiling, with Brolin or Duke Leto or whoever it may be. Duncan Idaho has to adapt to wherever he goes because that's his job. That's his duty. Yeah. And so that's why I love it. He nailed it.
He really did. And you see the love that he's got for the royal family.
Mm-hmm.
It's like after he's loved that scene when he's making them when he's flying through the on the helicopter or whatever, and they're shooting after him, and he's making them blow things up as he's flying around.
God, I can't wait to see this movie again.
It's great, man. Like all that stuff that goes through. You don't really see Brolin's character die, so leaves it open. Maybe he's a hostage. Maybe I don't know. We don't know where he is, but we don't see him actually die in the battle. So Reilly's keeping that open.
I don't know. I haven't read the book.
Close to the vest.
Yeah.
But like all of that, and the way that even that little smile that Brolin has when he's running towards, and he's like, "Follow me," and he's doing that whole thing, because it's that whole the mission is they're set up to fail from the moment that they're there.
The Emperor does not like House Atreides.
Right,
we know that now.
Quick, he's to me, he seems like the Lannisters to their Starks.
Yeah. It's all a power thing, and again, going back, it's a chessboard, and a big move happened with the Harkonnens and the Baron,
right?
And there's still, Denise said, "I'm so glad that I was able to set up this world now,
right.
And it's a really complex, dense mythology. We've talked a lot about that." And then he's like, I can't wait to get to the second half because there's a lot that's going to happen. But believe me, that chess game is still going on. That intrigue, that political, whatever you want to call it, there are some twists and turns coming that a lot of, if you're not familiar with the book, that are tied to everything. And I can't wait for audiences to realize it.
Yeah, I can't wait for this movie part 2 because of how invested I am with the way that they set everything up. Right, the fact that the entire like system, the entire government of Atreides was wiped out more or less, and then it's just Lady Jessica and Paul on the run trying to figure it out. Him staying in the desert because he needs to get back to space. He's like, nah, I'm good here. This is where I belong.
Visions have told me he wants to be, and he makes that choice.
Yeah, and that's why, because even like again, we have that vision of where Paul sees himself get stabbed by Zendaya. That doesn't happen. Right, like we're gonna find out more in part 2 what that means overall. Like, and I did like the idea that when and we didn't really actually touch on this on yesterday's, the idea of when he shows up, and they already have this idea that people there that there's word that this kid is coming, and they're chanting for him and they're doing this, and like I love that moment when the woman who's working for the Emperor, but she ultimately is Fremen. The one who is kind of their guide throughout, and then she winds up dying with the worm with the other two. She has that scene of like when she's talking to him about the boots, and she says to him, "Well, how did you learn to do that?" He's like, "No, it just seemed like the right thing to do." And then she says, whatever the thing that she says out loud, but like
part of the prophecy, part of like he will. Oh God,
he knows he'll know your ways without knowing how to do it, as if it's his own thing, whatever she says. But it's like little things like that, and little nuggets that they just pepper in throughout. It just adds so much to it, and it doesn't take away from, like, everybody's overall arc and mission of what they are and who they are, right? Like you understand the Doctor. You might not agree with what he does, but you understand the Doctor. You understand Duncan. You understand what's Josh Brolin's character's name?
Gurney Halleck.
You understand Gurney, right? You understand Lady Jessica. You understand the Gobjabber, like the Baron.
The Reverend Mother. The Gobjabber is the device that he sticks the hand in. The Reverend Mother is the like a high priestess kind of thing,
right?
The kind of the highest you can go with the Bene Gesserit kind of religion. Like that's going to the craft of storytelling,
right?
And how this movie can be. It is dense. It is a mythology that you're not going to get it right away if you're not reading this book 100 times.
Right.
You're not going, and that's what I love about this movie so much is that already on a second viewing, I'm like, oh right, like isn't that what we want?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for movie lovers out there, even like Game of Thrones people or Lord of the Rings, it's like when you watch these things and play out in these stories, there's a lot of intrigue, there's a lot of twists, there's a lot of turns. You're not going to get everything at first.
So what it reminds me of also is when I saw Kill Bill Volume 1, I loved that movie. I still might say Kill Bill Volume 1 might be my favorite Tarantino movie.
Really?
Yeah, okay. I just think it's just so different and so, I don't know, the music, everything about it is just it's great. The second one is really good too. But when you watch them together, the second one just makes the first one so much better. The first one makes the second one so much better, right?
Yeah.
And I feel the same way with this. It's the same. It's the thing I always said about like The Matrix. Matrix 1, one of the best movies of all time.
Yeah, masterpiece.
Matrix 2, had 3 been great, 2 would have become phenomenal. Because 2 is set up in a way where you're like, wait, I remember people going, I didn't really love it. And I always remember saying, wait until you see 3, because if 3 delivers, 3 is going to make 2 look really good.
Right.
But 3 just didn't deliver, and it didn't make, and so when you look at 2, there's not a lot of people who look at Matrix 2 and go, that's terrible. They just go, bah.
Yeah.
They say 3 is the terrible one, right?
Yeah.
This movie, after you watch the first movie and you're like, okay, even if you say like, I was bored, everything too, and it locks into this big action piece of what they say is coming in 2, and then you watch it as this big epic like 5-hour movie.
Yeah, think about it that way.
That's when people are going to go, oh, because I think that 2, especially if it's and that's the beauty of source material.
Mm-hmm.
It's tested. It's understood. It's worked before in the literal medium, and now literary medium, and now it will be, and now it'll work. It'll tie together the same way as you mentioned, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. That's the way I feel. We're going to get to that point where audiences are going to see part 2 in October of 2023, and they're going to go, and there are going to be people out there that are going to go get the book. There are going to be people. I do believe this will enter the zeitgeist, like Lord of the Rings, Matrix. We're going to be saying it like later on. It's like use the Force. Whatever. That's a term that now we've coined in everyday life, or quoting things. I think we'll say the same thing about Dune. There's going to be pieces of this story and mythology that are going to live within people now when you get so involved and when you start seeing this and when you start digesting the crazy mythology that this is.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people, and I do think that's the beauty of the day of streaming though too, man, because I think a lot of people who wouldn't be interested to see this in the theater are going to go, all right, I'll try it, and then they fall in love with it, right? Then there's going to be some people who are like, I was right, I'm bored. But
sure. And that's,
but I like the easy access of it. But I do understand, and I actually do think it's smart, even though I don't like it. I do think it's smart to make the second one exclusive just to theaters, and then, but at least give me 30 days, and not 3 months,
right?
Before it comes out on HBO Max. Like there's got to be some benefits to, because HBO Max right now you have all these benefits. Mm-hmm. Because you get the same day release, right?
Yeah.
It's one of their main reasons they've been so successful.
Yeah, the HBO Max app is I just love
it's great.
It. It's my favorite of the streaming series.
It's great. They have a lot of great things. A lot of their movie selection, the original content. It's all great stuff, right? But one of the main attractions right now is what they did with the same day. Now, I understand that they can't do that. I understand that they did that because of the times that we live in, and they made a move. And I also understand that it pissed off a lot of directors, Nolan being one of those directors.
Yeah.
But to do 3 months, 4 months, the way that movie theaters in general work, especially for a movie like this movie will come out most likely in the summertime. Mm-hmm. And then a week later or 2 weeks later after it releases, another big movie will come out.
Right. They have to make it in 2 weeks. Yeah, they really do. I mean, you have to, like a Marvel movie, a Star Wars movie, a Dune. I mean, not necessarily Dune, but because of, Marvel, Star Wars being what it is now. You have to make over $100 million opening weekend, or you are a bust.
You're a bust. And that's why, by putting them out on your streaming service like quick, and there's also, I think what you're going to see with streaming services, for movies that don't deliver, like if there's a big movie that comes out and it eats shit in the theater, mm-hmm. I think you'll see it on, let's say it's an HBO Max movie, right? Mm-hmm. I think you'll see it on the platform faster mm-hmm. than you would if it did well, right? Yeah. So if a movie does very well, I think you give it a month, because 30 days, you normally have, like, the first month in the theater is really where you make your big money.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, and I think that's where that was probably the compromise that Denis made.
Yeah, he negotiated.
He negotiated. 30 days seems right to me.
But isn't that crazy, though, how still was able to, knowing, it just shows you that the studio probably thought it was going to be too big of a risk in general. Why don't you sign that guy to a deal immediately to make 2 movies already, and then inside of that deal say, if we need to put it on streaming, this, that should, I mean, granted, when they signed the initial deal with him, mm-hmm. the pandemic wasn't a thing.
Right.
So, but why you didn't already have him locked in to do 2?
And I think that speaks to the source material and a lot of the chatter going into this. We were talking about it all the way back on Collider Live, and it was like, I don't know. And it's like, no, listen, it is.
You sold me on it. Yeah.
It is, it is a mythology. We keep saying that is dense. Sure. Keep saying that, but it's hard to swallow. Yeah. Right away, it's like I was
Subtitles
a lot of
helped tremendously.
Okay, and I haven't done that yet, and I probably
tremendously.
Yeah, but I liken it to a glass of wine, or bottled wine. You open it up, smells a certain way. You're like, okay, let's you take a little sip, and you're like, ooh, that's good. Okay, let that open up. Let's get some oxygen in there. Get some oxygen in this, right? Watch Dune. That's like popping the bottle. You smell it, you taste it for the first time. And as this movie continues to exist and is there for you on HBO Max in theaters right now, you can go again and you can get that flutter of, some fruit.
Yeah.
And it's and then you get a little bit of the soil. You get a little bit of the
it's a great
texture. It really does open up after
It's
time.
a great point because I think that there's a lot that I'm excited to watch it again to pick up little nuances that I missed and little things, and knowing now, for example, knowing what I do about Lady Jessica, I'm going to look at her differently in scene 1 than I did when I watched it the first time. Right, and I'm gonna look at that scene so much differently when he meets the Gobjabber for the first time. I'm gonna look at the difference first time I see the Duke. There's so much I'm gonna look like what's the Emperor's race called?
Harkonnen? No, the Emperor. I can't remember
because he sends all his guards in because it's his guards that kill Momoa.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's God.
It's all right, whatever. But either way, like even that, and how many guards Momoa takes out, and
so
that
great.
scene and the technology. The technology we talked about briefly yesterday was what I liked about it with the, you'd see blue when the shield's up, but it's like the red and Greg yesterday said it reminds you like when you the levels of like a video game,
right?
Like
right. You're like, your life is wanting here.
Yeah, like when that arrow comes in on Isaac and it gets red, he's almost there now, and it's like it's devastating, right?
Yeah.
And and the music in this movie, there's just so much
Hans
that
Zimmer.
works.
We haven't really talked about that.
Yeah.
So Hans Zimmer did not take Tenet with Nolan his long time because he wanted to do Dune.
Wow.
He's a Dune head. He's like, I gotta do Dune. Sorry, Nolan.
And Nolan was probably cool with it. But you know what's funny? I'm such a Hans Zimmer stan, if you will, right?
Yeah,
I've seen him in concert. I can usually pick out pretty quick when Hans Zimmer does a score because he's got a lot of similar tones and things that he does.
I know where you're going with this.
Couldn't recognize it.
He did something very different.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, it is a very big compliment because it, again, to go to the wine metaphor, it's going to play out. We're going to be talking about this music in this movie for a very long time, and you can hear this music and it's like, I just heard something masterful.
Yeah.
Now when you hear it again, watch it again, whatever, it's going to just keep building and get into it more.
Did he do? No, it was Horner, wasn't it? Who did Troy? The score for Troy.
Wasn't it Horner?
It was Horner, I believe, because I feel like, and maybe because I saw them.
I can't remember.
I saw them so close to each other. But Eternals has a great score also, but it's from the composer of Game of Thrones.
Oh, that's right, Ram Djawadi. Yeah.
So but there's one, and I'm pretty sure it's Dune. I got to see it again because they played similar to me, the feel and the scale of the score. But I'm pretty sure it was Dune that made me think of the Troy score.
Okay.
And I wonder, like, I'm pretty
maybe
sure
it's Zimmer.
I think it was Horner. I'm gonna check it out. But
I should know this. I'm going to look right now, too.
Yeah, I'm going to see the Troy score. Let's see. We'll find out. The composer was... Who was it? James Horner. Yeah, it was Horner.
The great James Horner.
The great James Horner. You know, it's funny about Horner. I totally forgot. We're doing a rewatch for the Spider-Man movies, and we just watched The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, he did that one.
He did that score. But I think that was like his last one before he passed. One of the last ones.
Magnificent Seven, I believe.
Was that the last one?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you know better than I do.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, Horner is just one of the greats, and Legends of the Fall is my favorite.
Oh, so good. Yeah. But Zimmer then to do this, and it's
Zimmer did Amazing Spider-Man too, if you can believe it.
Let's look at that.
Yeah.
So this is interesting then because if what you're saying makes sense that he's such Dune head that he's got an idea of what it would sound like, how it would be.
Probably been composing this thing his entire life.
Yeah, for a long time.
If he's a Dune head, if he's like going in, he
the sweeping what he would do.
And I mean, I bet he had I can just imagine Hans Zimmer when he hears that this project is coming to fruition, as like him sending gift baskets, you know, to be a part of this.
You know what I would definitely do though, if I was single and I didn't have responsibilities, if you will, I would go. Probably just grab a coffee early in the morning and go have breakfast right beforehand and go to the first screening in IMAX and just sit down and watch this movie again.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's a dream. That's what I would like to do.
Take an edible and go in there.
Yeah, why not? Why not? I mean, that's what Paul tells you to do anyway, right?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's the spice. It expands the mind. It in the mythology of Dune, it leads to deep space navigations.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, everything like the what they're able to do with the we even touched on this yesterday. Even in Star Wars, there's so much that Star Wars takes from Dune, whether it's the spice stuff, the spice trading, and we
Desert Planet.
Tons of stuff that George took from
Chosen
Dune. I mean, George, and it wasn't just Dune. That George took inspirations from Kurosawa, from Flash Gordon. I mean,
right,
so much.
The serials of his youth, you know, cliffhangers and whatnot. That's why Empire is so great, you know. And that's Dune is a part of the, you know, there are a lot of artists and filmmakers that started by reading Dune,
right?
Started by reading Lord of the Rings trilogies.
Yeah.
These are books that are really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I can see, you know, I don't like the conversation when you're like, it's Star Wars for adults. It's like, no, it's not. It's different.
It's different.
It's just different.
I understand that I understand how kids would gravitate towards Star Wars more, but Star Wars is also for adults. So to say just that, because you can, I mean, even George, I know people, well, George Lucas says that Star Wars is for children. Yeah, but adults can enjoy it, right? And adults enjoy like a lot of the original trilogy, a lot of everything too. But understanding the point of that, it is geared toward, like the prequels are geared towards children, right? And George and all that. This is not geared towards children. It doesn't mean that you can't enjoy Star Wars if you're an adult,
right?
You know, I always get testy when people say, like, you know, when we ask like goofing around, people do it, but like when we ask animated questions in Schmodown, people are like, why are we asking kids questions for it's like,
nope,
you can it's for kids, but
I love animated movies.
Adults can enjoy animation, adults can enjoy Pixar, adults can do, so I never like that like, you know, that brass tacks, that's what this is. But for Dune, if you ask who's the audience, you're not going to gear this towards children.
No,
this is not a children's movie. So I understand that point.
I do too. Star Wars is a fairy tale instead of Once Upon a Time. It's a long time ago.
This is science fiction,
and this is science fiction. Yeah. Correct. Science fiction is a little bit more heady.
Yeah,
you know. And look, everything is gray. Yeah. It's not black and white, you know. You can look at the mythology of Star Wars, and it's a little bit easily more digestible because of what Lucas does. Yeah. You know, it's laser swords and space wizards. It's
pretty, it's
right,
and not complex dialogue, and
no, Dune is not that.
No,
Dune is science fiction. It is very, very heavy to consider.
There's a lot. There's a lot of politics. You know, there's a lot of religion. There's a lot lot going on, especially when you look at when it was written, and a lot of it plays true to what's going on today. So,
Lord of the Rings is an adult version of Game of Thrones. No, I mean it's like, you know what I mean. It's like
you mean the other way.
Game of Thrones is right. Reverse that.
Right.
That's kind of what. I feel like that. Exactly. More boobs, you know. It's like, no, it's Game of Thrones is, you wouldn't let your kid watch Game of Thrones, but you'd let them watch Lord of the Rings.
That's what that was my issue with that statement, was that it was more of like, you know, I get where you're going with that, like, you know, this, I still think if you say this is science fiction that is geared towards adults.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And
I look forward to the second one. I love the technology in it also, because even though it's like the year 10,000 or some shit.
Yeah.
Even though it's the year 10,000, there's still like helicopters. There's still guys named Paul and Duncan. You know, right? It's like, and it's not it. It would bother me more if there was just one guy named Paul and everybody else was named, but everybody else pretty normal name, Lady Jessica. Yeah, like they're just normal names. So it's like, it's always one thing. It's like, you know, there's Windblom, there's Ed.
Yeah,
that's when it throws me off. But when it's just everybody had those names, and I don't know. I'm looking forward to this next movie, and I think this is the only reason why I wish it was a series, because I know I would be getting an episode next week, as opposed to waiting 2 years. That's always my problem with movies, right? Like where the benefit that this movie has for the majority is that it's getting positive buzz, and that most people are really enjoying it. when you have a movie, and we always talked about, like, you look at, you and I have split opinions on, we have different opinions on Last Jedi, but we both can agree that after that movie came out, it turned the fan base like against each other, and everybody was, and you had to wait 2 more years before the next movie came out. So you had 2 years of people just boom, 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 going after each other, as opposed to watching a television show. Bad episode comes out. That episode stinks. Oh, it's terrible. All right.
Next
so
week.
in 7 days.
Yeah.
I got a new episode now. Yeah. And if that episode's good,
then
people
forget.
go, all right, I forgot about that one. But if it's also bad, then you go, this show's starting to get bad.
Right.
And like Dexter, right? Dexter was a great show. And then towards the last couple seasons, like the episodes just starting getting worse and worse and worse. Then you're like,
look at Game of Thrones. Yeah, the last season, you know, that
so
was
funny. So divisive that whole thing. But that goes back to that book conversation. But
yeah,
either way, we did it, Mark.
We finally did it. Did we catch it? Did we got the audio?
I hope so. We're gonna find out. Don't jinx us. That's our spoiler review. Sorry for getting this up a little later today. It's because obviously we missed yesterday's. Again, apologies to Greg Alba. It was such a great conversation we had with him. But I think we did pretty good today.
Yeah, I agree.
So, check Mark Reilly out over at the where can they find you? What's going on?
Big announcement coming next week for me, and a lot of stuff going on that I'm doing. Follow me on Twitter at Reilly Around, REILLY Around. And I'm on Twitch a lot now. I relaunched my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Mark Reilly. But if you go to follow along with my Twitter, you'll know I'll be making some announcements and going to have a lot of fun. I'm excited.
I'm happy to hear it. Always happy to have you back.
Yeah, it's good being here, my friend.
On Friday, we got The Amazing Spider-Man. We're doing the rewatch. That's myself, Winston Marshall, and Corey Jandrew. And then same day, we're doing the Sith Council, the Star Wars rewatch, and that's going to be of The Force Awakens. So make sure you check that out. A lot of reviews, reactions, things coming up down the pike. So check it out, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be doing a lot more here on this channel. We're at about 18,800 right now, hoping to get to 20,000 by the end of the year. If you're finding us for the first time, please subscribe. Find us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere podcasts are found. We appreciate you. Get to the Schmodown. It's going to be live downtown Los Angeles. Schmodown Spectacular, December 4th. Big show. Want to come see us live? Check it out. What it's all. Say hello. Schmodownlive.com. Get your tickets. Peace.